technology to address the gathering.
Yeah, thank you, MOC, for the welcome. And respected Chairman, Lion Dr. K. Rangaswamy, respected Vice Chairman, Mr. R. Srinivasan, respected our CEO, Dr. K. Tyagaraja, and today's guest and resource person. In fact, the eminent person working in Nokia R&D, Mr. V. Viswanathan, and more, one more identity of Mr. Viswanathan is he's our distinguished alumni. I'm proud to have him here as alumni of our K. Rangaswamy College of Technology. The moment I mentioned distinguished alumni, I'll be able to see the smile on his face. That is what the power of the alumni and the power of K. CT and the department, where we studied. So that is a great identity of any individual for that matter. Thank you, Mr. Viswanathan, for joining us on this wonderful occasion. And the Dean of Electrical Sciences, Dr. KB Jayanti, and Head of the Department, Dr. Kumar, and the organizer, the coordinator of this particular IET and COFACE, Dr. Babu, and other faculty members and my dear students. Without further delay, good afternoon to all of you. In fact, the title again, it's not like a kind of formality. The principal should address and give the felicitation, but it would be in a kind of preamble because Dr. Kumar has covered almost entire thing. He has set a context for the for this particular webinar. I just take a minute of time to touch upon what is actually required because. Our resource person will be elaborating on the thing. I'll tell you only three things. One is hands-on, because whatever we study in the books, you refer internet, anything, that's not a problem. What is your practical exposure or skill on this thing? It is not about the knowledge based. It is not a knowledge based industry. So education, we used to call it as a knowledge based industry, but actually the industry is expecting skill based people. That's what. So engineering, we are not industry is not looking for an engineering graduate. They are looking for only engineers. That is the first thing I request all of you to know. Keep that in mind, and please take the things further. That's one thing. The second one, why we have to focus only on the recent or advancement technologies. It's not so. It is needed. It is need of the hour. Yes, we should know about all the buzzwords, and we should involve ourselves in all these things. But the basics, the fundamentals, that is highly important. So you may talk about 5G, you may talk about IoT, you may talk about automation, you may talk about artificial intelligence. Everything is fine. Where it has evolved. So that is again very important thing. A basic electronic circuit you should be good at. A basic FPGA you should be good at. These are all the basic things we have to know as an electronics and communication engineer. For that matter, any engineering basics are very important. We should be strong in basics, and obviously I used to mention horizontal exposure and vertical expertise. So that is again the second point which I wanted to insist upon. The third one, now we are talking about automation anywhere, everywhere, IoT, Internet of Things, Internet of Everything. Probably our chief guest will be able to say how many percentage of devices connected so far in the world. Because just 2 years before it was mentioned that only 1.2 or 2% of devices connected, but now the percentage would have increased. Probably we'll understand from Sir, and accordingly we have to work on. So that is also the data is important. The third point which I wanted to mention here, the data, because without the data we cannot proceed further. That is the need of the hour. So with these three inputs, I wanted to request all our students, because it's a kind of opportunity to network with our chief guest. So immediately, the best practice is connect with him, in LinkedIn. So that advantage, it is not only you are connected with Mr. Viswanathan, also you will be able to connect with his own network, his own friends, his own expertise. So that is a great advantage. You will be able to understand a lot of things through the LinkedIn. So that's another thing which I wanted to insist upon. So with this, I wanted to thank the department and IATE. It's not any club or chapter just inaugurating and going for a valedictory. What impact we have created among the students. So through this kind of webinars, I'm looking for more number of projects to come, because the success of any student, any engineering student, based on how many projects he has done during his engineering. So based on that, you will be able to easily perform in the campus process. So that is one objective also you should add upon. So with this, I thank our the today's resource person and chief guest and our alumni for joining us virtually, and he will be sharing his rich experience. Thank you very much, Mr. Viswanathan, and we'll meet in person also in future based on your availability. And I request you to travel our campus and address our students. So with this, I over to MOC. Thank you, MOC, for the opportunity.
Thank you for your enlightening words, sir. Some people dream of success while some other people get up every morning and make that happen. Now I cordially invite such a dynamic personality, Dr. K.B. Jayanti, Dean, School of Electrical Science, K.S. Rangasamy College of Technology, to address the marvelous gathering.
Respected founder chairman, Lion Dr. K.S. Rangasamy, MJF. Respected vice chairman, Thiruvar Srinivasan. Respected CEO, Dr. K. Tyagaraja. The chief guest of today's program, Mr. Viswanathan. Our respected principal, Dr. R. Gopalakrishnan, head of the department, Dr. P. Kumar, IET faculty coordinator, Dr. Babu, and the CAFE's faculty coordinator, Mr. Jayamani. A pleasant welcome to all of you. And I take this moment to share just a few words. Mr. Viswanathan, special welcome to you. Finally, you have made it through. We started this proposal, say about more than a year back. That was on a physical mode, and we couldn't make it. And I'm really happy that this has finally happened today. With you connecting over from there itself without the problem of traveling over here. But still, I have my request that once things get settled down, you have to physically visit the institution and get connected to us and the students. That is my request at this point of time. And I'm doubly happy at this juncture today because I would proudly say that we are connected to two alumni today actually. One is Mr. Viswanathan, who is delivering the guest lecture from as a representative of Nokia. And the other one is Mr. Elango, who is here for a recruitment process. I'm very proud that we have all our alumni in very good positions. And my message for the students today is we strongly believe those who are connected online, trying to listen to the lecture, will be back here, say after 10 years or even less than that, just like Mr. Viswanathan, and come and share your seat with the students who are there at that time in this campus. And hope that happens. And if we are here, we will have most proud moments then also. With a small note, I once again place my welcome to Mr. Viswanathan, and thank you for giving me an opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, for your incredible words. Optimism is the faith that leads to achievement. I graciously invite Dr. P. Babu, Professor, Electronics and Communication Engineering, to introduce such a great person, Mr. V. Viswanathan, R&D Manager, Nokia, Bangalore.
Good afternoon. May I audible? May I audible?
Audible.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. First of all, I thank the management, the principal, COE, and Dean, Schools of Electrical Science, HOD, for giving me the opportunities. So it's a great pleasure and honor for me to introduce the chief guest and the distinguished alumni and my dear friend for this virtual webinar, Mr. Viswanathan. Mr. Viswanathan completed BEC in K. Rangasamy College of Technology, Tiruchengodu in the year of 1904 to 98, the first batch of alumni. After he started his career in Wipro, Bangalore in broadband network and 2G division. Then he joined Texas Instrument India and USA as a technical project leader in 3G chipset division in the year of 2006. After that, he completed MBA Symbiosis Pune in the year of 2008. In 2009, he joined Nokia. Now he had 22 years of overall experience in telecommunication device development. Currently working as R&D manager in mobile network division at Nokia and also handling mobile network security, architecture, and IP transmission. Thank you. Once again, welcome Mr. Viswanathan. Welcome. Over to MOC. Thank you.
Thank you for your ambitious words, sir. If your actions inspire others to dream more, learn more, do more, and become more, you are a leader. Now I cheerfully invite such a person who has accomplished the success and our most valued guest of today's session, Mr. V. Viswanathan, R&D Manager, Nokia Bangalore, to take over the webinar session.
Thank you and good afternoon, everyone. Hope I am audible clearly to all of you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It is audible. Clear. Crystal clear.
Okay. Thank you so much for such a warm welcome. I am honored and humbled. Yeah, a lot has changed since I graduated from KSR, but the greatness of KSR remains as it is. It gives me immense pleasure to connect with all of you. My special thanks to Dr. Babu for inviting me to address you today. And my thanks to all the dignitaries who are here and also to all the students who have allocated your time to listen to this seminar. And to those of batch 2021, my advance congratulations for your graduation. And I also wish you a good luck for all your future endeavors. You are graduating at a time when the world is going through a major technological revolution. And you are blessed to be graduating at this time. You have a chance to change the world and you have plenty of opportunities in front of you, be as an engineer or as technical leaders or as entrepreneurs. The opportunities are really, really vast in front of you. That being said, I also repeat what Dr. Gopalakrishnan said. Sorry if I got the name wrong. It is all about the basics. Yeah, okay. The basics are really, really important. And another thing is when I talk about Industry 4.0, what I have decided is I don't want to deliver another, technical lecture here. And you have been listening to a lot of lectures and, I just thought, what could be a most relevant topic for you. So my topic is not too detailed technical or something like that, but it is more, I have touched upon a bit of technical introduction and what is happening in the field today and how you can connect it to the career. And I also have tried to connect it to your subjects as well, because I also thought what Dr. Gopalakrishnan exactly felt. It's not all about buzzwords. It is not all about whatever may be the buzzword, but finally the basics are the basics. Okay, so with that, give me a moment. I will set up the presentation. Are you able to see what I'm sharing?
Yeah, sir.
Okay, good. Okay, well, industrial revolutions. We are witnessing the benefits of industrial revolutions right in front of us now. Can anyone imagine how the world would have been now during a pandemic without computers, mobiles, and networks? It is these revolutions that ensure that the world can function almost as normally as it was before the pandemic. The fourth industrial revolution brings the concept of cyber physical systems, like Dr. Kumar rightly said. It connects machines, communication networks, processes. When I say processes, I mean the industrial processes, computers, and human. It influences every aspect of the industrial process, from manufacturing, analyzing, testing, sorting, troubleshooting, packing, and distributing. And you call whatever. Any industrial process is today covered under this umbrella. There is one international truck manufacturing company who embed sensors and other monitoring devices into millions of the trucks that they are manufacturing. And by using machine learning, they are able to predict which trucks are most likely to have a malfunction in the near term. With that information, they contact the driver to go to the nearby maintenance facility and send the required parts and related information to the facility in advance. So look how the machines, processes, human and computers are all closely linked here. So that is the essence of Industry 4.0. Okay, so in a way, if you really see what is Industry 4.0 is, we are also linking Industry 2.0 and Industry 3.0. So Industry 2.0 brought the concept of science and mass production, and Industry 3.0 brought the concept of computers and digital revolution. Whereas in the Industry 4.0, what we are essentially trying to do is we are trying to link these two. What are the key factors, that are behind the Industry 4.0? So this also Dr. Kumar touched upon. Nevertheless, just for a continuity purpose, I may be repeating some of the topics yet again. The 5G network is the backbone of this. Without a network that can seamlessly connect everything everywhere, the Industry 4.0 vision cannot be achieved. Big data, where we talk about data analytics, machine learning, and terabytes of data, handling, storing, sorting, that's what we call as a big data. And the ability to process the data, analyze, learn, and create intelligence. So all these are the part of big data. In the IoT, we bring the machine-to-machine communication capabilities. In the integration, what we are trying to do is we are able to bring thousands of smaller components and create a larger system. Then automation is the direction the world is leading to. And this refers to the ability to make machines execute all repeatable tasks, and in some cases, even learn and execute new tasks through artificial intelligence. With computers getting at every level, what happened to the cyber security? That is very, very, very crucial because it is very easy for hackers to literally get into any system and just spoil everything. So the cyber security is very crucial part of Industry 4.0. Then the concept of additive manufacturing is also playing a major role in the Industry 4.0. So here we are referring to the technologies such as 3D printing and digital prototyping. Simulations refers to the technologies to design and visualize the end product digitally. The cloud. We need a cloud to set up an environment instantaneously, to store huge amount of data, and to run complex algorithms that are not possible to run on normal computers. Augmented reality. That refers to the capabilities to expand the physical world by adding the digital layers to that. So this 5G network and together all these components are the primary driving factors of Industry 4.0. Okay, we will touch upon a bit of 5G network here. Like I said before, 5G network will be the backbone for Industry 4.0. And 5G is not just an evolution from the 4G, but it is a revolution. With 5G, we are now talking about connecting billions of devices across the world. In future, almost every machine and sensor will be equipped to connect directly to the internet, from CCTV cameras, industrial sensors, home appliances, automobiles, and so on. 5G is developed keeping that explosive growth in mind. 4G was not. When 4G was developed, the machines were not in mind. We were still talking about mobiles and how fast we could give access to their data. But 5G, fundamentally we are thinking differently. The next important part is about latency. Virtually we are talking about zero latency here. Okay, technically it is 0.1 millisecond. In comparison to 200 millisecond delay at 4G network. Latency refers to the overall network delay between the source and the destination. You may think why latency plays such a crucial role. What is so important about that? 200 millisecond to 0.1 millisecond, what difference does it make? But the 200 millisecond delay offered by 4G may be good enough for watching media, videos, and conferences. It's all fine, but not for remote controlled real-time operations such as surgeries, automobiles, and we are talking about self-driving automobiles, correct? They are constantly connected. They are designed to constantly connect via the 5G network in the future, and they have to decide in a, I can't even say fraction of a second, they have to decide instantaneously. So that is where the latency comes into picture. And please remember, when we are talking about a latency of 0.1 millisecond, we are already talking about speed of light limitations. Because no matter what you try to design your telecommunication equipment and processing capabilities, please remember speed of light is the limit at which anything can operate in the world. So when to achieve 0.1 millisecond latency, already the DSPs and the the SOCs and the every aspect, even a smallest slightest delay has to be removed. That's a major challenge. So that part we are talking about. The peak speed offered will be okay. On paper it is 10 gigabits per second, but in reality we are not even able to achieve 1 gigabits per second at this point of time. So as you see the gap, this is really a dream, but we are not even close to that. In addition to that, 5G is designed to support huge capacity needs, because when we say everything is connected, there is a constant transfer of data. So huge capacity needs and multiple application scenarios. It is no more about only a mobile phones and all those things. It's about every sensor, and each sensor will have its own criteria. Multiple applications, and overall faster response time, everything, including not only latency but overall everything has to be fast. There is no scope for even slightest delay. Okay, so now with that, now I want to touch upon what it means for you as an engineer. Okay, so like I said, I am also coming to the basics now. In ECE, at least you're reading a lot of these, correct? Radio frequencies. You have a lot of chapters about radio frequencies. I'm not sure about what is in the syllabus at this point of time, but what is mainly used in 5G? We use the technologies such as beamforming. MIMO you might have read, I guess so. But there is a concept of massive MIMO where we are talking about integrating more than 16 antenna elements. It can go even up to 64 antenna elements. 64 antennas simultaneously transferring and receiving, that kind of a situation we are talking about. Then we are talking about millimeter wave. The current 4G mainly uses, the wavelength is in the range of centimeter wave, but here we are talking about millimeter wave. Millimeter wave, gentlemen and ladies, it's close to microwave. And we are talking about dynamic spectrum sharing, DSS. Then in the radio front haul, we are using a technology called eCPRI, that is Ethernet-based radio packet transmission. That's also a major revolution, because currently we are using optical fiber, and the optical fiber sets a lot of limitations that it is one-to-one. I mean, from the base station, normally we run one optical fiber and take the signal to the antenna element. But now we are talking about moving that also to a Ethernet, So that means the base station can sit somewhere, the antenna can sit somewhere, and in between, the operator can use the public internet to transmit the radio signal. Okay, you see where the advancement is going here. Then the system on chip capabilities. Like I said, we are already dealing with speed of light limitations. So there is a lot of research going on in the areas of DSPs, GPUs, CPUs, and everyday advancements are happening here. And literally they are facing every kind of a limitations to achieve to this kind of a speed that is needed for 5G. Then this software defined network. What is software defined network? It refers to the ability to separate control plane and user plane of the network and dynamically control network parameters. For example, you might have observed that when certain area gets suddenly crowded today due to whatever an event, or on the main road there is suddenly a traffic jam or something. If hundreds of cars are piled up, suddenly your mobile stops working because the network today does not have the intelligence to know that something has changed within that cell area, and it has to increase its capacity. Today the capability is not there because today we don't have a software defined network. It is a statically configured parameters today. But in future we are talking about a software defined network where the software can even control the network behaviors dynamically. Then we are talking about Open RAN and Virtual RAN. This ORAN and vRAN opens the network in such a way that new networking vendors can start getting into telecommunication field, and the telecom software can be run on any hardware, which is not the case today. Today, the telecommunication is largely dominated by Nokia, Ericsson, Huawei, and Samsung to some extent. But in future, we are talking about opening it up. So that means it's a kind of like you call as a open source. We call it as a open networking. So that means any vendor is today welcome to get into the telecommunication field. I'm not sure how many of you watched the Reliance Jio AGM, where Mukesh Ambani stated that they have a plan to come up with their own 5G. What he really meant was he's trying to use this Open RAN and vRAN to create his own 5G setup. So that is another advancement here. Okay, now coming to the skills. As an engineer, what exactly do you need to really work on these areas? See, I have covered electronic devices. Don't ignore, because we are talking about all things happening in the electronic devices. That is at the core. So please put enough, I understand the limitations of how deep, we can go in our engineering, because there are just too many subjects. And, frankly speaking, I struggled a lot to really complete so many books, within 6 months. I struggled. It was not an easy game. And I am sure for you also, you are struggling, but at least try to grasp the basics very strong in the electronic devices and communication networks. You are having one or two subjects in communication networks. That is quite useful. And believe me, what I read during my engineering, I'm still referring after 20 years of my industry experience. And operating systems, especially Linux, is kind of becoming a global operating system for all these telecommunication equipments. Then coming to the programming side, it's largely C, C++, and Node.js, and microcontrollers and ICs. I don't know what exactly you are. I think I used to practice in 555 when I was in my engineering. I don't know whether it's changed now, but whatever that microcontroller, the basics what you are learning, just you have to, when you are joining the company, just that from a microcontroller, it will be a different ARM-based processor. Just you have to learn additional data sheet, and you have to remember and you have to program accordingly. So hope I have connected, such an advanced topic like 5G to the, basics, what you're reading in your engineering. Okay, now let us see a bit about IoT. What is IoT, or Internet of Things? The ability to connect almost all machines to the internet and establish machine-to-machine communications. This is the rough sketch of any IoT setup. Okay, you have a device hardware, then you need a device software basically to control the device aspects. Then you need one communication network because like we described or discussed earlier, communication is the primary part because machines have to communicate with each other. Then there is a data processing layer. Typically on the cloud platform, you have a lot of IoT related aspects, which I plan to cover little on the next slide. So you have a cloud platform and cloud applications. That is where you do all the data gathering, the data analytics, and you are actuating back. There could be sensors or there could be actuators. It could be anything. If it is the sensors, you just collect the information. If it is an actuator, you give back some information to actuate it in some way. Say for example, if it is a robot, you have to really operate the robot in a certain way to achieve a certain goal. One second, it is not switching to the next one. Okay, now once again I just want to connect you to the subject and education. Okay, what is happening at the R&D side here primarily? What are sensors and actuators? We have close to 200 different types of sensors and hundreds of actuators, and new ones are coming almost on a day-to-day basis. And what are the aspects that are primarily used here? We are using gateways, we are using analog to digital conversion and digital to analog conversion. We have a lot of data aggregation systems here. We do a data analytics here, and security is involved because when everything is connected, security will become, I have one dedicated slide for security, but I just want to insist that the security is going to be a major area in the future. Then on the cloud platform, which we call as an IoT core, that is where we have a lot of applications as well as the core software. Okay, on the IoT side, again, if you really see as electronics engineer, a lot of electronics aspects are involved, all the sensors or finally electronic gadgets. So a lot of electronics knowledge is used there. Device drivers are needed for the sensors. And again, there is a communication stack being developed there. Then on the pure software side, we have a lot on the IoT core, predominantly from Amazon AWS, Google Cloud, Azure, Salesforce. So these are the leading vendors who provide the IoT core. So remember, these are basically the areas that are primarily needed if you want to pursue a career path in the IoT core, and it's a lot connected to your studies. Once again, it's not very different. Okay, I go to the next one now. Data cloud. The cloud is a major transformational factor in the industry 4.0. It enables that practically anyone can establish a huge enterprise within a few days. Cloud offers almost anything enterprises need, be it infrastructure, the platform services, applications, algorithms, data storage capabilities, processing capabilities, machine learning capabilities, and so on. Say, for example, AWS and Google Cloud provide more than 200 cloud hosted facilities. Okay, here I only stated 4 or 5, but there are more than 200 services that are available in the cloud today. What more an enterprise need to set up a company and operate? All we need at the company side is some some thin machines, some normal laptops to be used to access the cloud offerings. Enterprises no longer have to worry about buying costly servers, setting up a fault-tolerant networking, licensing hundreds of applications, and hiring so many data center management engineers, and so on. Even large enterprises who are having their own data centers are gradually shutting down their own data center and they are moving to public cloud. For example, at Nokia, we have already taken a decision to close all our own data centers and we are moving to Google Cloud. So this transition will happen over a couple of years. Okay, what is happening? Again, coming back to the education and career point of view. What exactly to focus upon? This public cloud, Amazon AWS, Azure, Google Cloud, So people who are having knowledge on these public cloud capabilities, they are in great demand today. Okay, then there are also private cloud capabilities. There are some situations where somebody may not be in a position to use a public cloud because of still some fear about a security or whatever. In that case, they have an option to set their own private cloud using open source software such as OpenStack, CloudStack. Again, cyber security I am mentioning here. Remodeling everything into cloud native. This part is the software part where we are talking about applications, servers, networks, containerization, Kubernetes, microservices. What are the skills, where people are predominantly getting hired here? The cloud administrators are in a great demand. So cloud certifications in AWS, Google, Azure, then the hardware and the servers, knowledge, the administration knowledge, and also setting up a fault tolerant networking. A lot of that networking engineering skills what you learn in your ACE also comes handy here. Then if somebody wants to be a cloud developer, they are typically focusing on container based software development such as Docker, then container management frameworks such as Kubernetes, then the virtual machines, microservices. So these are the areas where primarily the industries are looking for talent today. Okay, now we are coming to the next buzzword, big data and machine learning. So again, it may look like a buzzword, but it is fundamentally what we are already knowing and what we are fundamentally doing. Okay. First thing is we need a lot of data. That is important. That is why today all the companies are collecting a lot of data from you and from me and from everyone, from Facebook to from Google to every app that we use. Why they are giving it for free? Because they are collecting the data, because the data is the future. If you have a data, you are a millionaire today. So data is the foundation here. Okay, then on the data you just apply mathematics and statistics. Okay, primarily in the artificial intelligence and machine learning area, fundamentally what we are using are normal mathematical statistical things, like even the differentiation, the basic differentiation is the fundamental what to say backbone of the machine learning. Then you apply a bit of computer science, then you get a machine learning. Okay, so data, you apply mathematics, bit of computer science, that's it, that's machine learning. Then you also add bit of business and domain expertise, because you may have a data, but unless you know which business or which domain it belongs to, the data does not make sense. So if people have a certain business competency, and if you add that also, then that becomes data science. And these people are the highest paid people today, people who know a lot about data science. And again, don't see it as a something's way too different. It's all everything what we read and what we use every day. Just the knowledge, the ability to bring them together is what is making the difference. Okay, then without computer science, if you just apply statistics and business domain, there is a demand. Those people are called as a data analyst, and even they are holding very good positions today. They are getting a very good salary today. They are in great demand today. Okay, if you don't have a statistics, simply you have a business domain knowledge, and you just come up with some program. That's what we are having today. It's a traditional software. What we are having today. Okay, what is happening basically here? Okay, you have a data, and you have a bit of statistical knowledge, and again, I don't want to go so deep into the AI or machine learning algorithms, because that will be a lecture, and that is a different context. Today, I did not want to go very deep into those kind of technology areas. But what is happening? Which are the primary areas where they are applied today? So the computer vision. Okay, what we call as a computer vision is the image analysis and the video analysis. These are the areas where the AI and ML is, is in great demand today. We do anomaly detection. Say, for example, you have a CCTV cameras and set up in some security zone, and normally the machines learn what is the normal pattern. It learns, okay, normally how many people are walking here, or whether people are standing here in some place, or whether people are crowding. Over a period, it learns, what is happening. And if an anomaly happens, suddenly, say, some fine day, some 5 people are assembling there, and they are standing there for too long a time, that's an anomaly. And your machine learning can now detect that some anomaly has happened. Then it can trigger an alarm. Then VIPs identification, the places like airports, where many people come and go. From security point of view, sometimes it is important for them to know when an VIPs are entering the zone. So they are using machine learning for identifying the VIPs. And you would have seen a lot of, even in your mobile phones, you might have seen a lot of applications where you do the morphing and changing the age of a person and changing the color. These are some minimal basic applications I'm talking about. There are hundreds of and thousands of such applications possible. Then the speech recognition and language interpretation. This is an area where machine learning plays a major role. All those Alexa, Siri, and Google Assistant, whatever we are using today, they are basically using this speech recognition and language interpretation. Then just on the data side, we have a lot of statistical needs, classification needs, interpretations. There are quite a lot of applications on the plain data also. The skills, again, many of us forget the hardware. Okay, the hardware designing for machine learning is very niche area. The current hardware are not able to run the complex machine learning algorithms, because we are again talking about terabytes of data. If you see the companies such as Google and Facebook, or even a mid-sized company today is able to collect terabytes of data in a matter of 5 to 6 months. How do you process the data? Are traditional computers able to handle this data? No. So they are coming up with a special purpose GPUs to run complex algorithms. So if you don't have this hardware part, there is no machine learning. So this area is also getting very hot. Again, this is all about CPUs and your knowledge, what you gain in your engineering. Just you just keep improvising on that in an industry. It is not very different. Okay, on the software side, which are the predominant software, ready-made software that that are very popular today in the AI and the ML area, where the industries are looking for? Google TensorFlow, PyTorch, OpenCV. CV is for computer vision, Open Computer Vision. Then the AWS also, Amazon AWS also has a AI framework and extensive knowledge of Python. So these are the things which today the industry is doing, and as well as industry is looking for people. Cyber security. So like I said, okay, the world is becoming complex. Everything is getting connected to the internet, and almost every equipment of the future will come up with a mini computer to provide processing capabilities. That makes cybersecurity very essential part of the system. You might have read recently in the newspaper that in Mumbai, electrical substations were hacked. I mean, okay, one foreign country name was named as the the people behind that, and because of that, the substations were brought down in Mumbai. See the kind of danger that we are living in. Everything is under the control of software, and everything can be manipulated if you don't have proper cyber security measures. So this area is really becoming very hot, and the people are very sparse here. We are not getting people with a lot of security knowledge, and security has to cover all the aspects. Applications have to be secured. Your network has to be secured. The information that you exchange across has to be secured. The platforms that we are using has to be secure. And security is not like one hardware or one programming language. Security is a mindset. We call it as a design for security or security first thinking. Not everyone is able to do that. Many people have a casual attitude. Even programmers, when they are even the architects, when they are designing, they are least bothered about the security. They are with a positive attitude. Hey, who is going to hack me? No, there are people to hack into the systems. So there has to be a security first thinking. There has to be a design for security mindset at every level. When you do a coding, when you do architecture, then there are a lot of security test tools and penetration tools. And the industries are looking for people who know how to run those tools, how to interpret the results, and how to guide the R&Ds in the right with the right security mindset. So that's what it is about cyber security. Then of course automation is one area which I don't have a separate slides, but basically it is all about combining these things together. The world is getting complex, and it is not possible for anyone to keep repeating the tasks. So that is where the automation comes into picture. Whatever can be automated is getting automated. People are even finding the other ways by applying the machine learning. They are trying to automate even the things that are otherwise looking like impossible. They are trying to use the machine learning to automate even those things. If how do you build a career path? Build a strong basics during the engineering course. Okay, so when Dr. Gopalakrishnan stated, I was quite happy because I share the same opinion. Many of us forget to build the basics during the engineering. Okay, but trust me, it is what the industry needs. The foundation is very important. We can't have a strong building if we don't have a strong foundation. Even if not all the subjects, at least the subjects related to the radio frequencies and the microwaves, the hardware and electronic devices. These subjects are really, really relevant, and they will continue to be relevant for next 50 years or so. So at least try to have a strong foundation, and even when the companies are interviewing, they really give emphasis, or they give attention to the people who are strong in the basics. Okay, at the end of the graduation, when it is time for you to get into the job, don't really think that you have to join a big company alone. It's not necessary. Try to get into any job that you are immediately able to get into. That is very important. Many people miss here. Many people whom I knew, what they did was they were hoping that they will directly get into a big company, and they just waited for years, 1 year or 2 year, and they again started facing competition from the newer batches of students, and then it made their life a bit difficult. So any concern is fine as long as the domain is interesting, and for that matter, even the small companies are doing fantastic job these days, and they are working on top-notch technologies. Try to get into that company and start to gain experience. And once you have two to 3 years of the practical experience along with a strong foundation, that's when you become really you're really in demand in the industry. Then you start to dictate the terms at this point of time. Okay, then your resume is very hot, and literally then you are able to get into any company of your choice, provided still if you are strong in the basics and you have really built the correct experience. At this point of time, your life is going to change differently. I think this is the people, for those of you in 2021, I don't know exactly the the summary of how many of you have been placed in the campus already and how many of you are trying to get placed. Just please remember this one: start to gain experience no matter what. Don't give up and don't lose heart. Okay, then now you are a master in the industry, but don't stop it. This is again the another problem. People at this point of time, they think that okay, now they are set, they are established, and they stop learning. It is not possible. Continuous learning is very important today. If you don't learn continuously, you become outdated within a decade. Because the technologies, at least the buzzwords are going to change, so fast, so soon. And if you are not able to cope up with that, that's again a challenge for you. So do a continuous learning and try to gain mastery of a few domains, because it is very difficult for you to know everything. And add some certifications, that also helps at this point of time. There are certifications in the areas of hardware, security, machine learning, and the cloud, the networking engineering. Everywhere, any field that you want to pursue, there is a certification from a very globally reputed authority. Those certifications really have a value in the industry. Okay, I think it's time for me to conclude my address. I really wish you all the best, and thanks once again to Dr. Babu for inviting me to address you. It was a great opportunity for me to really connect with all of you, and I'm really quite happy today to connect back to KSR after so many years. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for the marvelous and knowledgeable webinar session. The platform is open for queries. Participants can unmute themselves and ask their questions to our chief guest.
I'm glad there are no questions. Okay, what I will do is I can share my LinkedIn profile also to Dr. Babu, and you may give it to the students, and uh, you can be connected. We can keep exchanging the information.
Vishnunadan, I'm Babu.
Yeah, hello.
Nice session, Vishnunadan. I understood everything. Small words that regarding things only. In your concern, you be any intern regarding the students or students second and third years internship? If
Yes,
possible, if apply is getting possible.
Yes, we do recruit interns. But the thing is, intern recruitment is centralized. It's not like each project is separately hiring the interns. At a Nokia central level, they really have a zones. Tamil Nadu is not covered by the Bengaluru zone. I think it is covered by the Nokia branch in Chennai. They are directly, recruiting the interns. But I will let you know if this policy changes, and if at a project level, if they start to recruit interns, once again. Yeah, we have a lot of interns. Every year we take a lot of interns, and they come from various colleges across India. But I don't know whether Nokia has ever visited the KSR campus in the past. They might have come from the Nokia Chennai, even if they had come.
Is any protocol I must they directly apply, or that that's why I'm asking you that suppose the student interested that area on getting Indian, what is the protocol I'm asking, that directly apply or?
Yeah, Nokia has a program called University Connect. So through that University Connect, Nokia identifies set of colleges each year where they have regular exchange of information. Even the employees of Nokia keep visiting the campus, and they exchange a lot of technical information. And typically, once a college is enrolled into that University Connect program, then normally the interns are recruited from those colleges. So I will try to find out, which person is responsible for Tamil Nadu region, because I don't know. The predominantly from Bangalore, we are mainly focusing on the colleges in Karnataka. From Chennai is where they are looking into all the colleges in Tamil Nadu. But I will try to get a contact for the University Connect person, and the right protocol is that from the campus cell you can try to get in touch with that person and try to set that link going. So that is a starting point.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Vishwanathan, actually, we started this process of getting connected to Nokia, and the people from Nokia were also here for a presentation, and we started this process actually. Mr. Vinny Chandar is also one of the members of the BOS from this R&D University Connect group actually. But what happened was soon after the presentation, the COVID issue started, and then we couldn't proceed further. Actually, the process you were talking about, we initiated the process last year. And there was also a proposal to visit Nokia in Chennai, but everything got into issue because of COVID. Probably once this gets over, I think we will continue that proposal again.
Yeah, maybe just please get me the name again. You can text me. I will try to get in touch with
I'll
that
call you
person and
after
find out.
this meeting. I'll call
Okay.
you soon after this meeting.
Yes, that the zone is the problem. They have just kept it like that. State-wise they are handling. So
Yeah,
that's why.
I understand. That's
Yeah.
not an issue at all.
And also, not only interns, we have an annual innovation day. That is where, during that day also, we are inviting students to come and demonstrate, whatever they have done. We see a lot of people using these Raspberry Pis and Arduinos and, demonstrating a lot of IoT capabilities. And, that was also quite interesting. And we were impressed the way how the students are really top notch, these days. So that is another
But how do
possibility
you
for.
invite those students? Is it like you have a call for exhibiting the projects, or how does it go actually?
Again, through that University Connect, that University Connect is the umbrella. So
Okay. I
once
understand.
some colleges
Right.
are empaneled into that program, then all this information naturally happens. Whenever there is an innovation day in Nokia plant, and the empaneled members get to know about that, and then they come back here.
Okay, so the key for everything is the University Connect program, right?
Exactly. Yeah, that is
Okay.
very important to establish the link.
Okay. Okay, I understand. Thank you.
Okay. Does anyone still want to open up and ask some question here?
Hello, sir.
Hello.
Sir, this is Sweta from third year, sir.
Hello, Sweta.
Sir, for even internship or a job, what is the basic we should gain, sir?
What normally at Nokia we are looking for is again the strong foundations. If you are strong in your curriculum, as well as at least C and C++ programming is something becoming a de facto standard today. At least in industries like us, we don't look for a lot of application development expertise. And this C and even C++ may be a bit optional, but at least to try to be strong in C and strong in electronic devices. And so you never know, the question can be on a transistor. How do you one small circuit can be shown, and people can tell if this is the input, what will be the output, kind of. Sometimes these kind of basic questions only. Okay, you don't have to be really like I said, the expectation is not like you have to be too strong, but on the basic side, try to have that basic awareness. That is important. And the C development expertise will be important. And when you are picking up the project, whatever you are planning to do in your fourth year, also try to do something where this the so-called cyber physical, what we are discussing about, try to embed a bit of electronics and bit of computers, and uh, this with the Raspberry Pis, I think you can do a lot of things today. So what we are also looking for is, we look at the interest level of that person. We look into all these things. What kind of projects which they have done on their own, what kind of initiatives which they have taken on their own. That is how we get an impression about the person. So it's not so different, just the basics. Again, I just want to insist, you don't have to look out anywhere. Just look back into your curriculum and show little interest in these areas, and try to have a practical experience, and try to demonstrate your practical experience through these kind of projects. It is not necessary that only in the final year you have to do the project. These days, even I see the school students are executing different electronics projects using Raspberry Pis and Arduino boards. Try to experiment. That is important. Show that curiosity. That is very important. Have the faith in you that if you know this, definitely you will get into that. That faith is very important. Once you have the faith, try to do it through these different kind of projects, mini projects, hobby projects, and try to go beyond textbook in some areas, and try to participate in lot of open events are happening. There is a lot of, say for example, ethical hacking events are happening in many places, and many students are participating in those ethical hacking events, and they are finding the vulnerabilities in a lot of products. They are even getting bounties. They earn a lot of rewards from companies such as Apple and Google, because they are able to find out the issues in their products. We all have the capabilities. Okay, the problem is we ignore. Even if you know some bug is there somewhere, we just ignore. But don't ignore. Whatever you know, whatever you get to know, try to document it, and try to send an email to that company telling that you have found so and so kind of things, and keep documenting and put all these things in your resume. That is how we get to know from the industry. We get to know that okay, this person is having that curiosity beyond just finishing the textbook. So a combination of all these things, Shweta. I hope I made it clear, or did I complicate your question further?
Sir, it's clear, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you. Just taking back, actually, when I was when I was in 98, when I was doing my engineering. So when the time came for me to do the final project, so I was exploring what to do and what kind of things to do. And that is when I came to know, and guys, remember 1998 was not a time of Google. Okay, so you can't simply open the computer and search something and you get answer. But somewhere through some books, I came to know that neural networks, okay, can become a popular topic in the future. So there they had given certain ideas about what can be done on a neural network. And I picked that topic for my college project in 1998. Okay, so that really helped. So when I met the interview panel, and I explained them that I did a project in neural networks. I tried to do, okay, rather than telling that I did, because what I did in my college was that project was a lot experimental. Because a neural network in 1998 was more of coming. It's a coming. We are talking today. We are talking about machine learning, but neural network is part of the machine learning. And imagine in 1998 where it would have been. So that kind of a curiosity which I had, and the experiment I had, I also explained to the my interview panel that I experimented, but the result was not as successful that as I wanted. But it just went like a demo. But they were quite happy. They just saw the curiosity and to do something different, to learn something more than the textbook, and that really became something like what to say, one major positive point during my interview, what I had with Wipro Technologies at that point of time. So curiosity, that is the word which we are looking out. When we look at your resume, are we seeing the curiosity in that person? Just learning a book and passing out is one category, but how much curious you are, how much curious you want to learn about industry, how much you want to learn the applications, whatever you are studying, everything has an application. Many of us fail to see the connection between what we read in the book and what is actually there. They are exactly the same, but many feel that books are theoretical and we lose interest to even read them properly, but it is not. Trust me, everything you read, everything you have read, everything you are going to read in the remaining years of your engineering, everything has a practical application. It is okay if some subject is very difficult for you. It's fine. It is understood. I don't know whether you are still reading engineering electromagnetics. Uh, do you still have that subject, engineering electromagnetics? Can anyone answer, please?
have.
Okay, which year? Second year.
Yes, sir.
Okay. One of the toughest subjects, correct? It is not
Yes.
easy. Yeah, at least I remember it was not easy. And in my batch, almost everyone funked that subject. I think out of 60 people or so who attended in the first attempt, only 10 or 15 could clear. But engineering electromagnetics is what is a very important field today in the radio technologies. We do a lot with engineering electromagnetics. So that's what I'm trying to tell. At least we were the first batch in that college, and we did not have the luxury of getting some seniors to come and connect the subjects to the actual reality. I wish we had, if we have had, and our life could have been a lot simpler. Yes, I think we have to really push hard, and we have to come out to Bangalore or Chennai, and we have to really establish. uh, it was very tough with no connections, no seniors to guide us, no seniors to help us. We had to come and we had to demonstrate our capabilities and getting into companies. It was not an easy game, but KSR is today this very different today, and you have KSR is today known as one of the best institutions in Tamil Nadu. I think KSR is in the top 25 or so, if I am not wrong. And you have Campus Connect, and you have a lot of seniors to guide you, a lot of seniors to tell you what is right, where to give a focus. So please try to use this opportunity. And the opportunities are tremendous. Like I said, this industry 4.0 is really going to give you a lot of opportunities, not just as even job, even as entrepreneurs. Many people even in my batch, they have already become entrepreneurs. I think Ilango, I think, who is visiting your campus, he was my classmate, and he's having his own concern today, and he is coming and recruiting the people. We are quite glad to hear his success story. Like that, we have so many other people you know who are it's a kind of a self-made people. We have to really, they are self-made. They did not come with a background, they did not come with some support who took us along. So they are self-made. So, and with you, we are there for you, seniors are there for you, and there are people to guide you, connect you. Please use this opportunity wisely.
Do anyone have any queries? Thank you, sir, for clarifying our doubts. No matter what language we speak, a kind and smiling thank you always speaks to everyone's heart. Now I call upon Ms. G. Praveena, third year, K.S. Rangasamy College of Technology, to propose the vote of thanks.
Thankfulness is the quickest path of joy. I deem it as a great honor and privilege to propose the vote of thanks on this memorable occasion. First, I thank by giving glory to the Almighty for making today's occasion a resounding success. We are grateful to thank Lion Dr. K.S. Rangasamy MJF, founder chairman of K.S. Rangasamy College of Technology, Vice Chairman Mr. R. Srinivasan, our motivating Chief Executive Officer Dr. K. Tyagaraja. In their absence here, I further extend my warm gratitude to the chief guest, Mr. V. Vishwanathan, R&D Manager Nokia, Bangalore, for his presence and enlightening speech. Thank you, sir. We take pleasure in thanking our dynamic principal of K.S. Rangasamy College of Technology, Dr. R. Gopalakrishnan, for lending us this opportunity. Also, I extend my gratitude to the most supportive team, Dr. K.P. Chayanti, School of Electrical Science, K.S. Rangasamy College of Technology, our head of the department, Dr. P. Kumar, and CAFE's faculty coordinator, S. Jayamani, and IATA faculty coordinator, P. Karthikeyan. CAFE's and IATA student coordinators, faculty members, and students present here. Last but not least, I thank the spectators present here for their attention and making this occasion a great success. Thank you for giving this opportunity. Thank you, one and all.
Thank you, Praveena.
Thank you.